Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. I call Mike Sabin.
Well, there was a hail of words that didn't seem to make much sense to many people in the House, Mr. Speaker. Not that we made much more sense from that member either, I'd have to say. Choice and rights. Choice and rights. Two words we heard a lot from that side of the House, but not much about the responsibility that should accompany them. And, well, that's what life is about rights and responsibilities. It's about getting that balance right. And arguably, over 9 years of that member's government, that balance was right out of whack. And we saw those numbers go through the roof. We saw people migrate off the unemployment benefit onto sickness and invalids benefit. I don't see the member talking too much about that. Perhaps it's about keeping them beholden because when they are beholden, they're more inclined to vote for that particular party to get them back in government. I don't know. A cynic might say that. I don't know. Mr. Speaker, the member Jacinda Ardern made the comment about ghost chips, ghost jobs. That's right. Well, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, I'm one person who's internalising a very complicated situation in my head, because all we hear from that side of the House. And I can summarise the Labor Party approach by saying this, Mr. Speaker. I can summarise it by saying this, that they say there are no jobs out there, and yet they vote against every single effort of this party, of this National-led government, to grow the economy. There are no jobs, but they don't want to support economic policies that will help grow the economy. It's a tough time. The GFC and the Canterbury earthquakes, convenient memory lapse when it suits them, they'll pull that one out of the back pocket when it does. Mr. Speaker, they also say that there's too many people on welfare, and yet they'll vote against every measure that this government is putting in place to support people into work. They say that people want work, but they vote against every initiative that's about getting them into it. And don't let me hear from that side of the House that what they were doing was getting it all right, because it wasn't. This government has been brave enough to make the sort of changes that make sure that people are work-ready, that make sure that people have the appropriate childcare so that young mothers can get out into work. We're making sure, Mr. Speaker, that we support the most vulnerable young people who are in a collision course to an adult benefit, and ensuring that they've got the wraparound support, the knowledge and mentoring that they require to get them into work. And we'll hear again, but there's ghost jobs, there's no jobs. Well, I say to you, Mr. Speaker, there are plenty of jobs, and listen to what the IMF have to say about the economic policies of this government, getting us back onto a track an economy that ultimately creates the jobs that people need. Mr. Speaker, the Labor Party approach, and I have to throw their friends in the watermelon patch into the mix, is very much about their own ambition to be in government, in my view, because they want the economy to fail, and they're quite happy to see those numbers go up, because then they can say, oh no, vote for us because we've got all the answers. Well, actually, Mr. Speaker, the New Zealand public have woken up to that, and they wholeheartedly embrace the changes that this bill involves. And I just want to touch very briefly, Mr. Speaker, if I can, on one aspect of the social obligations that I think will make a lot of difference, and that is the drug testing provisions. Because there are a number of people in New Zealand on welfare that have problems with drugs, and drug use should not be a barrier to work. Because I say if it's good enough for those out there working in the New Zealand workforce to be drug-free, it is good enough for those who are on welfare, supported by the state, to also meet that obligation to be drug-free, Mr. Speaker. Let us not forget in this equation the value of work. There is value in work, and people, no matter what that work is, I say that they're better off being in that work than being reliant on the state. There is no dignity in that, and this bill is about providing all the mechanisms they need to be in work. Mr. Speaker, I commend it to the House.
I understand the next call is a split call. Sue Williams, CO.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to take a short call as I'm